What's going on, folks? Curtis Wilkerson with HawgSports.com. There is not a lot fun about standing up here and talking about a beatdown served up by the Texas Longhorns, but we got to do it. Arkansas did not play spoiler in the opening of Moody Arena at the Moody Center today in this charity exhibition. A quick reminder that it's an exhibition. It doesn't count on the win-loss record, but the Hogs were humbled by Texas today, 90-60, a 30-point loss. Maybe we appreciate the Longhorn Network for not putting that one on TV for people to watch. After all, rough go of it for the Razorbacks today. And listen, if you paid attention in the build-up to this, I was dropping some hints that this could be an interesting experience for this young Arkansas team. That wasn't just my observation. I've been hearing that behind the scenes, that they were looking at this game as a great opportunity, but one that might come with its fair share of learning lessons, and it certainly did for the Razorbacks today. Listen, talk to me in March, because I think it's going to be a very different story by that time. However, this does give you an indication of where Arkansas is at right now, in the moment, and the things that they need to work on and improve on before the season. But, quite frankly, just looking back at this game and looking at the box score, Texas was tougher. They were more physical. They were more assertive. They were more efficient. And quite honestly, they're more game ready than the Razorbacks now in the moment. Okay? And some of it helps because they played Houston, a Final Four contender, a couple days ago, or maybe a week ago in a charity exhibition. And Arkansas has been fooling around with Rogers State and those teams over in Europe. So I think Arkansas needed this before things get real. But Texas is the better team as of today. We'll see what happens come March. But a lot of things that Arkansas needs to work on. Listen, exhibition or not, what we saw today from Arkansas was unacceptable. I know Eric Musselman feels the same way, because there was a 45-minute window between the end of the game and when he walked into the press conference room to talk to the media. We could hear the things that were being said in the locker room. He let them have it. They needed it. Okay? They needed that. So he wasn't a happy camper either, despite the long-term value that can come with a game like this. Man, where do we start? I think you could tell right out of the gates that Arkansas was back on their heels, especially offensively. They looked out of sync. They looked sloppy. Just no rhythm. They were spread out and extended. The movement, the cuts were not as sharp, and there were a lot of turnovers. And that's kind of been an issue for the Razorbacks that you think they're going to clean up at some point. But I think the physicality, the pressure, kind of the veteran guards for Texas really set the tone there, I thought, defensively. And Arkansas struggled to really get anything going essentially for a majority of the game, outside of a few spurts throughout. Listen, I think Arkansas was fairly solid really early, maybe throughout the entire first half on the defensive end of the floor. I thought they were doing an okay job of challenging shots, recovering. They were definitely better staying in front of their man in the first half than the second half, but they weren't finishing possessions. They gave up a dozen offensive rebounds in the first half. Maybe it was 11 offensive rebounds in the first half. Whether it's 11 or 12, it's too damn many. And you couple that with the double-digit turnovers, and then Arkansas was outshot by double digits in the first half. So you're looking at that and you're thinking, hell, this could be a 20, 25-point game at halftime. Arkansas was only down 40-30. Okay, so you could think they'd go into the locker room, regroup a little bit, come out a little bit sharper, more crisp, more focused for the second half, but it didn't happen. The start of the second half was reflective of really the end of the first half, when Texas went on a run to increase their lead out from, I think it was 29-27 at one point. It was a 2-point game. Then all of a sudden they're up 10 at the break. And, Arkansas comes out, they turn it over on 2 of their first 3 possessions. They give up an offensive rebound on Texas's first shot, a couple buckets. Next thing you know, it's up to 17. Musk calls a quick timeout. They come out, Arkansas doesn't respond. Before you know it, this thing is up over 30 points, and it's gotten out of hand. That was that was tough to watch at the end of the day. Looking at some of these numbers here, 23 turnovers for Arkansas. That's a lot, man. That's a lot. And some of it's continuity and guys coming together and trying to get in sync. That's going to take time, gelling on the floor together. But the things that shouldn't be happening right now is just a lack of toughness and value for the basketball. Guys loose with their handle, not holding that thing and securing it strong, getting ripped, getting stripped, a little contact, bumping them off their spots and causing some errant plays. Those are the things that shouldn't be happening at this point, and something that they can fix between now and November 7th, or they better fix it between now and November 7th. But yeah, 23 turnovers to just 10 assists. Well, that's backwards from where you need it to be. And I want to say that Texas was 21 assists to 10 turnovers. That tells you a lot about how the game went. Texas shot 54% from the field. They shot 62.5% from three, 10 of 16 from the three-point line. Arkansas is too long and too athletic for that to be happening, but why did it happen? Because Texas was driving right by their man. Arkansas struggled with individual defense. They were sucking in a little bit of help and spraying out to guys who were knocking down rhythm shots, or they were driving, drawing help. Arkansas was caught ball watching, and they were dropping it off for dunks. Just from a fundamental standpoint, with rotations, communication, talking through screens and things of that nature, and just being aware, man and ball, that's man-to-man defense, one-on-one. That's basic stuff, and Arkansas struggled to that regard today. I think they were a little taken back by the uptick in competition. So what? Right? What needs to happen now for the Razorbacks? I think it starts with really just kind of finding your guys. Arkansas went with the same starting lineup that they used Monday against Rogers State, which I thought was interesting. Obviously, you saw something you liked there. Didn't get them off to a good start. Some of those guys struggled, mixing and matching a little bit. But you need to kind of start figuring out who your guys are, and it's going to evolve over the course of the season. But at the very least, you got to have an idea of who you're going to play, because you need to start gelling and start getting that continuity. And when it's spread out between 10, 11, 12 players, and you're just trying to find something that works, it's hard for you to build on the type of chemistry you need to win games at a high level. So they got to start figuring out who their guys are. And I think it starts with consistency at practice. It's one thing we talked to Muss about in the press conference, and he was saying, look, behind closed doors, I'm not really surprised that this happened because we're not consistent in practice. Some days we defend the three, some days we don't. Sometimes we look great, sometimes we don't. And it's guy to guy, and it's a team thing on a day-to-day basis. But man, that's just what you're going to get with 11 new faces out of the gates until everybody gets acclimated, right? So maybe this is what they needed to kind of give them a little bit more sense of urgency moving forward on correcting the things they need to correct, because you can't take that number 10 in front of your name for granted. Okay, it's preseason. You haven't proven anything yet. You just played the number 12 team in the country. You lost by 30. So now you understand just the level of execution and intensity and consistency that it takes to be at that level. Right? These guys are talented enough to do that, and we know that Eric Musselman gets his teams rolling, and we knew there were going to be some hiccups early, and then they would kick it into high gear, but the schedule doesn't creep up on you like it did last year. You don't get as many tune-ups. You go to Maui. Those are big games. You need those. And you need to be ready to play, because they're going to play teams that are better than Texas when they're out in Hawaii, and you want a better result if you're a Razorback fan, right? And I'm sure the guys want that too. Listen, I thought Nick Smith looked good. I thought he was up for the challenge. He was Arkansas's offense out of the gates. That was encouraging. Jordan Walsh really got going, especially in the second half. You wanted to see that from him. He hit a couple threes. I think he led the team with 14 points. Started playing a little bit stronger and a little bit more assertive. We started seeing what he can do in transition. So some positive signs there. Mekhi Mitchell, I thought, was up to the task in terms of just playing physical, being aggressive, and playing with high energy. I think he had 8 points and 4 rebounds. He left some bunnies on the table now. He was only 3 of 9 from the field. But I liked what I saw from him. I did. Again, another guy that's got to get a little bit more comfortable with what they're trying to do. But some promising signs. I thought Kamani, from a physicality standpoint, he's always going to give you good things. Devo, he understands it from a culture standpoint. Was diving for loose balls, was really getting after guys, I thought. Trying to get them in the right spots, trying to get them fired up and motivated. But maybe you need a little bit more from him in terms of taking over and taking control, facilitating and initiating some things a little bit more, providing some offense, because I still think that outside of Nick, they're still trying to kind of search for roles, and that's part of the deal, but you want to start figuring that out. Guys who are established, like Devo, can give you a little bit of extra punch there. So we'll see what happens from that standpoint moving forward. Some things to work on, defensively. I talked about the straight line drives. The rotations were just a step and a half late. Ball watching, communication. It just needs to be better. Offensively, playing stronger, valuing the basketball. Just more sense of urgency is what keeps coming back to me as I'm talking about this game. Just being a little bit more aggressive. I thought that maybe the competitive nature would take over at some point where some guys would just get pissed off maybe about what was going on and take matters to their own hands a little bit, just in terms of being aggressive, being physical. We saw flashes of it. I thought Ricky Council had a really nice sequence. He had a turnover in the first half, but he didn't sulk. He sprinted back. He got a chase down block, kind of led the floor in transition, and got to the free throw line. That's good, right? That's the kind of competitive spirit that you want to see. But they looked a little bit defeated at times there, especially when that thing ballooned out to 30. Tough day. It'll come. It'll come. Like I said, this team is talented. Patience is going to be required. I don't know that I necessarily came here to Austin today expecting Arkansas to win. I don't think I expected them to lose by 30 either. Maybe somewhere in between from that standpoint. But I do think two things can be true, right, at the same time. And maybe you should heed this advice if you're a Razorback fan. For one, doesn't matter. It's an exhibition game. Guess what? Tennessee beat Gonzaga by 20 yesterday in an exhibition. That doesn't mean Gonzaga's season's over. Okay, they're going to be right there. They're going to be fine. Same can be said about Arkansas. So that's one thing that can be true, right? Doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things. Arkansas will be better for this in the long run. Second thing that's true, what happened today can't happen. Exhibition or not, Muss said is probably the worst 40 minutes of basketball he's seen since he's been coaching in college. Whether it counts in the final win-loss column or not, doesn't matter. You want to go out and compete, and you want to be a good representation of yourself. That ain't the Razorbacks that we're going to see throughout the course of the season. And if they didn't know that going into the game, they sure as hell do now, because Muss got after him in the locker room a little bit. So now what? We see how they respond. I'd be very anxious to be a fly on the wall in practice to see the type of intensity that's going on, the expectations that the coaches are going to put on these guys, and who's going to start stepping up as a leader and saying, hey, remember what happened in Austin today? We can't do this anymore. Some things have to change. We got to get things going a little bit. Devo and Kamani as the returners, maybe you start seeing a little bit more out of them in terms of taking charge and taking the reins on this team. But when you got 11 newcomers, some of those new guys have to step up, and that's kind of the most fascinating thing about any team, but especially this one like Arkansas where you're leaning on freshmen. You got these new transfers that are coming in that need to contribute. Who's going to step up, right? Who's going to excel into these roles? Okay, because we were wondering some of these same things last year when Arkansas was almost losing to a Division II school in a scrimmage. And then, by the end of the year, Aldis Toney's established himself as one of the best defenders in the country. Stanley Amude is a knockdown shooter. He's a go-to guy for you as a scorer, right? You got what you got out of J.D. Notae. Guys started to elevate their play and ascend into the roles that they needed to be for the team to be successful. That's going to happen for Arkansas. But man, going into the season, I have no idea who those guys are going to be. It's a little bit scary, but it's also an exciting proposition because they have so much talent. So we'll see what happens there. Look, I think Arkansas needed a wake-up call. I do. You could kind of tell in the build-up to this game, really the entire preseason, Muss has been very measured. It's something I noticed at SEC Media Days. A lot of the coaches, you would think that there were 13 SEC teams that were going to go win a national championship. Everybody's excited. They're fired up about their team and the prospects of the season. And not that Muss doesn't feel that way, but he was a little bit more measured. And we got a lot of new guys. We got a lot to work on, not defending the way that I want us to defend. That ranking is nice, but it doesn't mean anything in the grand scheme of things. We got to get a lot better. I think he sensed it, that this group might need a wake-up call. Well, they got it. Now they get the opportunity to respond, and if Musselman's track record is any indication of what's going to happen moving forward, these guys are going to be fine. So a disappointing day in Austin for sure. At least the football team got a dub, all right, down in Auburn, right? But doesn't count. Okay, it's an exhibition game. Lessons to be learned, growth to be had. Got a little bit over a week until the regular season starts, and things are going to get real in a hurry. North Dakota State, Bud Walton Arena, November 7th. I bet we see a completely different looking Razorback team that night than we did today in Austin. It's been Curtis Wilkerson with HawgSports.com. Appreciate you guys following along. We'll see you soon.